Dear ladies and gentlemen, пані та панове, this is the fifth episode in the series of conversation and interviews with intellectuals in Ukraine. For those out there who are keen to learn more, think deeper and hear from the original sources. В етері п'ятий випуск із серії розмов та інтерв'ю з інтелектуалами в Україні для тих, хто хоче дізнатися більше, думати глибше та чути з перших джерел. This is a project of PEN Ukraine, whose entire team is in Ukraine right now, continuing their work under the extremely difficult condition of terror and the violence of Russia's continuing war against Ukraine. And I'm never tired that there are no words enough to express our admiration of their dedication and commitment. Це проєкт PEN Україна, уся команда якого перебуває в Україні, продовжуючи свою роботу в надзвичайно складних умовах терору та насильства війни в Росії проти України. Немає достатньо слів, щоб висловити наше захоплення вашою відданістю і наполегливістю. The project is co-hosted by PEN International, which has continued to provide a platform for freedom of expression for those currently under the highest risk. Our partners for today are PEN America, the Ukrainian Institute London, and the Harvard University Ukrainian Research Institute. We are streaming today's event to all their Facebook pages. Співорганізатором проєкту є Міжнародний ПЕН, який продовжує надавати платформу для свободи вираження поглядів для тих, хто зараз знаходиться у групі найвищого ризику. Сьогодні нашими партнерами є PEN Америка, Український інститут Лондона та Український науково-дослідний інститут Гарвардського університету. Ми транслюємо сьогоднішню подію на всі сторінки у Facebook. And let me present our today's speakers. І я представлю наших сьогоднішніх спікерів і перемикаюся на англійську, отже, захід буде відбуватися англійською мовою. Alim Aliev is a deputy director of the Ukrainian Institute, human rights defender, manager of educational and cultural projects, researcher, and media consultant. He's well known as a co-founder of the NGO Crimea South, and he's co-authored Mustafa Jamilev's Unbreakable book about the Crimean Tatar leader. And I should say that him himself is one of the strongest voices in Crimea Tatar culture right now. He also serving as program director of the Crimea House. Alim has been a participant and speaker at various Crimean advocacy missions in the Council of Europe, European Parliament, the UN Security Council, as well as political institutions of the UA and the US. Welcome Alim, who joins us today from Lviv. And Alim is in dialogue with a Burhan Sönmez, Turkish novelist. He's a voice from the opposite side of the Black Sea. Burhan is the president of PEN International, elected as a Centennial Congress in 2021. What is important to know that Burhan grew up speaking Kurdish at a time when the Kurdish language was marginalized and officially banned in education. Instead, he was taught Turkish at school. It's something common to share here. And after being very active politically, Burhan has assaulted and bounded by police forces. He ended up going to exile in Britain, where he received long-term treatment with the help of Freedom from Torture Center in London. He turned his hand to writing novels in exile. His interest in writing is rooted in the traditional stories he was brought up on. Burhan has received, among many other awards, the Disturbing the Peace Award from the Václav Havel Foundation in the US. And this is exactly the topic for our conversation today. Burhan joins us today from Switzerland. We will start with a short interview covering the latest news and continue with a conversation. Burhan, Alim, stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Olha. It's a beautiful day to be with you today, Alim, dear Alim, but it's a sad day to be witnessing that your people in Ukraine all are suffering under a grievous attack of Putin and his army. The first question about yourself, how are you doing today and nowadays? Please tell us now.
Assalamu alaikum, merhaba, Burhan Bey. Hello, dear Burhan. Hello, dear Olga. This last 2 weeks, last days, it's just a day of struggling, my struggling of Ukrainian people, struggling of all of Ukraine with Russian invasion. And I want to say that after 8 years of military aggression against Ukraine, Russia has launched this unprecedented full-scale war against our country. And this Russian invasion has the potential of becoming bigger and even deadlier than any other conflict that took place in Europe since World War II.
Yeah, and since the beginning of the war, I think you had to change your place. You are now in a different town. What about the situation around your family members and your friends? Everyone you know that moved to a different place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, after spending the 19 bomb shelter in Kiev, my Crimean friends moved me to Lviv, and my Lviv friends gave me a shelter in their apartment. The part of my friends, he's in Ukrainian army. Part of them, another part of them, they're volunteers. Part of my family still in Crimea now, and we just communicate by phone, by messengers, and my family, of course, support me and support all of for Ukrainian people.
Thank you. I know that you are on the governing body of Ukrainian Institute. How is the institute doing nowadays?
Mm-hmm.
Still functioning?
Yeah, the Ukrainian Institute is a public institution affiliated with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. And our mission is to strengthen Ukraine's international standing through the means of cultural diplomacy. And today we have a lot of challenges. We're trying to change all of our activities, and for today, I'm focused on a project that explains to the international community what is happening in Ukraine and what are the causes of this war. We also launched a boycott of Russian cultural, academic, and social initiatives abroad that are supported or funded by Putin regime.
I know that now so many writers on the ground are volunteering. They are not just writing or reading or composing something, artists. They are actually in streets on the field, helping people who need help. Are you witnessing that kind of things, that writers are helping people on railway stations or supporting supply chain?
Yeah, of course, because my friends, writers, journalists, translators, all of our country is a volunteering country. And it means that writers also volunteering in humanitarian aid questions, for example, or volunteering to help people to transport from hotspots to safe places in Ukraine also. Some of my friends, writers, they in territorial defense, and they defend the places, the cities where they were born, grew up, and now living.
Now, you have always been involved with cultural activities. Now we are in the war, and there is no space for cultural organizations' usual activities. Do you think will you be able to organize things on the cultural level or just doing the logistic work to help the people?
Yeah. You know, I mentioned about boycott, and maybe I will give more context what it means for us and why it's important for us for today. I know Russia has been using its great culture to justify, downplay, and steer public attention away from its country's war crimes, acts of aggressions, violations of human rights, and violations in international law. And that's why we call to boycott the Russian state now until it's completely withdrawn from Ukraine and is held responsible for its war crimes. It means that we call to suspend Russian participation in international, cultural, academic, and civil society events such as festivals, conferences, biennales, exhibitions, and so on, so on. Second, it's about boycott events organized by Russian institutions, as well as international foundations that are directly or indirectly linked to founded by Putin's regime and Russian capital. And also it's about refuse any donations, funding, or sponsorship from Russian organization, their proxies and affiliates structures. You know, today the trope of this great Russian culture is dangerous. It based on colonial and imperial legacy. It promotes aggression. It promotes exclusion, intolerance, and crimes against humanity. And you know, Burhan Bey, I believe that international community has the power to help put an end to this war. Maybe a little bit later, I give latest news from Ukraine.
No, please go ahead now. Just
Yeah.
let us know the latest situation.
Yeah. Because you know, we ask for support of our international community in the name of this our democratic values and truths and freedom of choice, of course. And if we turn to today's situation in Ukraine, I want to start with the last news. Today at near 3 p.m., this Ukraine State Border Guard Service received an information that Russian planes enter the territory of Ukraine and turn out towns and then fired on the settlements of Kopany, it's Belarus. And for us, it's mentioned that it's a big chance that Belarus will be, Belarusia will be involved into Russian aggression about Ukraine, against Ukraine. Today's Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Alexei Reznikov, said that Russian occupiers launched a terroristic war. It means that they kill and take civilians, women, and children hostage. As of March 10, the number of Ukrainian civilians killed by Russian invaders exceeds the number of military fallen in fighting. And the Kremlin is bombing schools, clinics, and maternity hospitals. For today, the Russian occupiers were stopped in all directions. But at the same time, the Russians continue shelling from the sky. One more, it's about previous night. In the early morning on March 11, Russian forces launched airstrikes on several cities in Ukraine, where the situation has so far been relatively calm, except of the first day of the invasion. In Dnipro city, a shoe factory was hit. The blast damaged residential buildings and kindergarten. One person dead. In Lutsk city and Ivano-Frankivsk city, local airfields became the target of the attack. And in Lutsk, 4 people dead. And in a Kharkiv region, the invaders struck a psychoneurological boarding school. It was completely destroyed. Fortunately, more than 300 patients and dozens of employees were in a bomb shelter. Mariupol. The pictures, the photos from the Mariupol. So I think all of the world, because 2 days ago the Russians hit the maternity hospital. As a result of this airstrike, 17 people were injured, 2 adults and 1 child died. And Mariupol remains completely blocked for both the evacuation of civilians and the delivery of humanitarian aid. The Russians continue to fire on houses and civilians. And last news from my native Crimea Peninsula. The Russian court verdict imprisoned public journalist of Crimean Solidarity, Rimzi Bekirov, and the human rights activist Riza Izotov for 19 years, Shaban Umerov for 18 years, Raim Ayvazov for 70 years, and Farhod Bazarov for 15 years. These people were detained on 2019 by security forces of Russian Federation on the territory of temporarily occupied Crimea during mass searches and detentions in the houses of these people. Yeah,
thank you very much. Because you are there, you see and feel everything directly. We are far away from you, but every day we see, we follow on the screen. It's so devastating for us, but we know that it's much more devastating for you and for your people. Yeah, Alim, I'd like to ask something about the first part of your conversation about this cultural boycott, just to understand your position very well. As Ukrainian institute, how do you position or see the situation of Russian writers who are against Putin? For example, in Europe, we know that so many Russian writers condemned Putin and his assault, and they support you. How do you connect them with the current situation?
Thank you, dear Burhan, for your question. When we say about boycott, we call to cancel any cooperation with Russian artists, writers, no matter how great or famous them, as long as they openly support Putin's regime, silence its crimes, or do not publicly and directly oppose him. And for today, of course, we have a lot of communication with our international partners, but we haven't any communication with Russian writers and Russian organizations, institutions. Because for us it's a hard question. When I said about decolonization and decolonization of culture, it also means to start the dialogue from decolonization of Ukraine and understanding of it from the side for Russian by Russian intellectuals, public figures.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. I think it's quite understandable for you. It's so difficult within Ukraine, to improve a relationship with anti-Putin Russian writers because you are in a war zone. Maybe this should be not your job. It should be the job of international community who support you. They should also convince Russian community and Russian writers, and they should rise up against Putin. We know that so far 8,000 people were arrested in Russia just because they protested Putin. In many countries now we witness that a dictator means the representative a regime who attacks two different territories. The one territory is their neighboring countries. For example, Putin, a dictator, and he is attacking your land, Ukraine. But on the other hand, a dictator always attacks his own people as well, because they don't want to see any opposition. They always want all people should be their slave. So when we now reject this dictatorial approach on Ukraine, we also condemn Putin for his dictatorial policies in Russia as well. We want freedom for everyone. Last week, I read an article by a Russian writer against Putin, one of the best pieces criticizing Putin. Everywhere in Turkey, in the United States, in Russia, in Ukraine, we all unite just for single cause, for Ukraine's freedom against this war and for peace. And Putin should respect your independency and your freedom. That should be the only red line for all of us.
Yeah, for Putin's regime, strong Ukrainian identity and strong Ukrainian and European state, it means the fall of regime. And, I just want to briefly say that in Ukraine, we have war during 8 years. And it was started from the Crimea. Yeah. As a result of temporary occupation of Crimea, Russia has in fact declared war on the entire civilized world. It has actually sought to illegally reshape international borders, propagate instability, breach international law, of course, also interfere in the elections of European countries and the United States. It has ramped up its spread of misinformation and its use of hybrid technologies to ferment conflict and to create new hotspots around the world, creating migration crisis, shooting down MH17 in temporary occupied territory of Donetsk regions. And now 2 weeks ago, Putin's Russia full-scale invaded to Ukraine. And, I think the circle must be closed and the end of the Putin's regime must come in a free Crimea also. And for me, how I can describe in one word what we have in Crimea, it's a new colonization. And of the result of this new colonization, we have the militarization of consciousness. We have replacement of population, and also we have the changing of identity.
Yeah. I think that's a very important point that we don't know much about, public outside Ukraine. Can you give us a bit more information about the situation of Crimean Tatar? If I'm not wrong, the population is about 200,000 in Crimea, and maybe 100,000 outside Crimea in Uzbekistan, and also in some part of Turkey as well.
I can describe shortly the current situation and what means this a new colonization in Crimea.
And also, can you mention your SOS movement?
Sorry?
We know that you are part of Crimea SOS movement. Soft power.
In the first day of the temporary occupation of Crimea, me and two my good friends, Tamila Tasheva and Sevgil Musaeva, we founded just a Facebook page, an initiative that named Crimea SOS Initiatives. It was in 27th February 2014. And it was just informational, just information of the current situation in Crimea. And for today, it's a huge human rights and service organization here in mainland of Ukraine. In general, human rights defenders documented more than 2,000 cases of the human rights violations on the peninsula for the last 8 years of the temporary occupation, from the violations on religious and ethnicity ground to violations against freedom of speech. Among them, for example, more than 130 cases of people placed under detention. Almost 200 children have been left without further care. Most of these people, Crimean Tatars. Crimean Tatars in Ukraine, there is a very clear national identity, has been viewed as a threat to Russian security in Crimea. And it means that Russian authorities destroy tangible and intangible cultural heritage that does not fit into the Kremlin's propaganda. One of the good examples, for example, is the Hen Palace in Bakhchisarai is a crucial object of the tangible heritage of Crimean Tatar culture, is being distorted under the gaze of restoration. One more example, similar excavations we can observe in other places in the peninsula. Moreover, Russia is manipulating of historical narratives in Crimea. Also, for example, the Ukraine's Orthodox Church are being raided in Crimea. One more, it's about Crimean Tatar religious identity. Russian authorities are using the Crimean Tatars' identity against us by fabricating the image of Muslim or nationalistic terrorists and extremists. And these two articles Russia uses when it prosecutes many Crimean Tatars political prisoners. But yes, we are Sunni Muslims, and religion has always played an important role in the shaping of our identity. But our nonviolent resistance that born in Soviet times and now is our fundamental element of the struggle for our land. One more, it's about Crimean Tatar language. Crimean Tatar language is listed as one of the disappearing languages by UNESCO list. That's why Crimean Tatars see its preservation as one of their key tasks these days. Only 3% of pupils in Crimea are studying in Crimean Tatar language. And to stop the language from the disappearing, parents create private initiatives for learning the language, as well as speak it at homes with their children. If I say about Ukrainian language, today we haven't any Ukrainian teaching school in Crimea. One more, it's about population replacement, and now I explain why it's important. 300,000 of Crimean Tatars are living in Crimea. And since the beginning of occupation, near 35,000 of Crimean Tatars left the peninsula. There are social active persons, disloyal to Russian authorities, young professionals, students, business persons, public leaders, journalists, and cultural figures. It was like a brain drain. But we have the reserve trend. The peninsula is colonized from mainland of Russia, from the state officials, security officers, security service personnel, even pensioners and business persons. According to our Ukrainian think tanks, the number of people who arrived in Crimea reached 500,000 people. And why it's important in a historical perspective. Our time, there were several attempts of changing the ethnic composition in Crimea by squeezing the indigenous Crimean Tatar people. First time, it was in 18th century when Catherine II annexed first time Crimea. 95% of all of the population in Crimea were Crimean Tatars. Today is just 15%. But after the first annexation, we have the Stalin's deportation of 1944, where all of Crimean Tatar people deported to Central Asia, to Siberia, to Ural. Half of my nation dead during this deportation and first days of first years of this deportation. And that's why when a lot of people ask me why Crimean Tatars against Russian authorities, why Ukrainians against Russian authorities, because I have one very usual answer. Because our values, freedom, our identity is essential for us.
Yeah, that's very important. Thank you very much. And also, we know that there are more than 100,000 Tatar live in Turkey.
Yeah.
In my country. Have you been to Turkey at all?
Yeah, of course. I love Turkey, and thank you that you said about it. After the first annexation of Crimea, a lot of Crimean Tatars moved to Ottoman Empire, to Turkey. It's modern Turkey territory, and Romania also. And for today, from 3 to 5 million of Crimean Tatar people are living in Turkey now.
Yeah, maybe I have to share some personal experience of myself. I come from a Kurdish nation. We are being oppressed in Turkey, like you are being oppressed, under the rule of Russians, and we are being treated like a backward minority. When we moved to town, at the primary school, I started to learn Turkish, as well as started to learn Tatar language. Because in that small town, part of the population was Kurd, and the other part Turk, and the other part was Tatar. I grew up speaking 3 languages: Kurdish, Turkish, and Tatar. Unfortunately, in time, I lost my Tatar language ability, but still I remember some nice words from my childhood time.
Oh.
Yeah, you would say, "Kayta ketesin." They would say, "Kıtırmaya ketemin çursa." And
Yeah,
we will always,
where are you going? Yeah.
Yeah, we would imitate our Tatar friends, and our Tatar friends, they would learn Kurdish, they would imitate us, and we would have fun, we would play together. And it's so sad today now that you're a Tatar citizen in Ukraine and a Kurdish citizen in Turkey, and we are suffering the same thing, and we are fighting for the same dream. That's the independence and freedom for our people.
Yeah, and I'm originally Crimean Tatar, and a lot of Crimean Tatars were politically Ukrainians, and now we fight about our common land, and it's important that this resistance in Ukraine, it's multicultural resistance. A lot of people, Jewish, Crimean Tatars, Russians, Ukrainians, Azeri, people from French, etc., 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 fighting together with us.
Alim, now all I see, I think we have to wrap up. I have to just add a few words you just said. You should know that you are not alone. You are fighting in Ukraine, and we don't have gun. We are writers, but we have soft power. We have our words, we have our books, we have our big communities all across the world, Pan International, and our friends. In all countries that we have centers, more than 100 countries, with 150 centers, including 3 centers in Russia, who openly criticized this war, and they are supporting you. We are all with you. You should know that you will win. We will win, because this is not a fight for nation, for something, for freedom. And we are all part of that big nation of freedom.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's totally true. Thank you, because we are fight for our free and common Europe also.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. You really touched the base today and started more than dialogue, but real discussion. And separate thank you for showing this multicultural context of the resistance in Ukraine. This is really important. This conversation brings lights to the most important questions asked by all the thinking people around the world. What is happening in Ukraine right now? What caused this situation? And what can an intellectual and people of culture actually do? We are grateful to our partners for today's event, Pan America, the Ukrainian Institute, the Ukrainian Institute London, Harvard University Ukrainian Research Institute, and for the cross-streaming service at all the partners' pages. Gratitude, of course, to Pan Ukraine, which continues to stay at the front lines in the name of freedom and truth. Pan International is proud to be a platform that supports freedom of expression. We don't always agree with each word said here, but we will give everything to support freedom of expression and fight propaganda. And this fight is happening today in Ukraine. Please follow our page to be informed about further events over the next week. And I'm delighted to announce the next episode, which will be broadcast tomorrow on Saturday, 12th of March at 5 p.m. Kyiv time, 3 p.m. London time. And I'm exclusively delighted to announce our tomorrow's speakers. Остап Словинський, Pan-Ukraine Vice President, poet, translator, essayist, and literary critic, and Olga Tokarczuk, one of the Poland's most celebrated and beloved authors, a winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature and the Man Booker International Prize. Thank you for today's conversation, Burhan and Alim. Thank you, our audience. Follow our dialogues on war. Join us tomorrow, share the stream, and stand with Ukraine. This is our shared responsibility today, and I will quote our today's guests, and we will win. We should.
We should. Thank you.